Welcome to Drop and Give Me 20, where you learn keys to entrepreneurial success as Lindsay Germono interviews business owners with military backgrounds on what works and what doesn't. Listen as they focus on the stories, both challenges and wins, that military entrepreneurs have faced in growing their businesses.
Good morning and welcome to another episode of Drop and Give Me 20. I am your host, Lindsay Germono. Drop and Give Me 20 is brought to you by Germono Advertising Company, a full-service advertising agency and headquartered in Norfolk, Virginia. I am joined today with the lovely Gems Collins, who, Gems, we were connected, I think, on LinkedIn first? How did this happen?
Yeah, I think it was LinkedIn or Facebook, one of the two. I think I saw you on one and then added you on the other one. But it was a while back now. Yeah, I've been following you for a while, so I'm excited to get to do this.
Very indicative to social media being, a really instrumental part of growing your business. I mean, you can attest to that because you have such a unique business. And in fact, I would love for listeners to understand what it is you do. So if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself a little further and share with us your business.
Yeah. So as you rightly said, I'm Gems Collins. I'm a business strategist and I help people to start and grow purpose-led, impactful businesses, and I have a special place in my heart, and I lean towards helping military spouses, just because of the lifestyle that we lead, the world we live in. It's challenging, and it comes with its own set of hurdles. And I think that entrepreneurship, remote work, that kind of thing is something that can really help military spouses to feel empowered, have that sense of independence, that sense of self, on top of what we do, supporting our spouses and service members. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
I know that the listeners are going to probably thinking, so are you a military spouse?
I am, yeah. Sorry, I probably should have added that in. Yes, I'm a military spouse. My husband is an American service member. We met when I was living and working out in Abu Dhabi, actually, and then I moved over to America, and then we got married shortly after. So he's in the Army, currently going through flight school at the moment.
My goodness. Well,
yeah,
I
think really exciting.
We should have another podcast about your background and all of your experiences. But how did you get to starting your own business, helping other people? How did that come to fruition?
My background is in business startups, but from sort of big scale corporations. So I worked for New York University, who were establishing a new campus out in Abu Dhabi. I've started up major elite sports training venues. And so when I came over to America, being sort of not from America, not being having to start my career all over again, and then throwing in the fact that I was a military spouse and we were constantly moving and there's no kind of longevity everywhere, the career trajectory took a massive good with that. In terms of my sense of self, and kind of lost a lot of my self-confidence. And through that kind of thought, well, if I'm going through this, other people must be experiencing the same thing. How can I use what I know from my work experience and what I've been through to help other people? And so just kind of started mentoring and working with people, and it's just kind of gone from there, really.
Sounds familiar to many of those that are listening on this podcast. So what's really cool is I get messages from people I have not met yet that are, they message me on LinkedIn or they message me on Facebook or Instagram or one of the many things that I'm on all the time. And they'll say something like, I know we've never met, but I just listened to this guest on your podcast and they're telling my story. And so I know that there's somebody out there that is listening that, will relate to you. And I mean, many military spouses are carried to their entrepreneurial journey because of their situation. So it can be situational that we do that. Do we have an entrepreneurial bone in us? Probably. But it's definitely, strengthened as we come around our circumstances. So we are talking about a very interesting topic. This one was very popular. And the reason why I wanted you to come on and talk about it of all the folks is because when you filled out, and I don't know if you registered this, but when you filled out the Google form to be a guest, it asked, can you share some advice for military business owners? And one of the things that you typed in there, and this was a while back, earlier this year, and it said to find your why and the how will follow. And I just thought, wow, what a really great teaser, and it was like the stars aligned because the topic that we're talking about today is authenticity in entrepreneurship, which is incredibly difficult, especially when we are, working in competitive environments, and we have this sense of, I need everything to be perfect.
Right.
And I just really loved that. So I'm so proud of, this recording, because I know that this is something that you probably come into contact with and kind of help people through. So I'm going to make it uncomfortable for a second. I want the listeners to hear from you a story about, maybe a moment in time. And I don't know the answer to this. So for those that are listening, this is not scripted. Gems and I literally came on like 2 minutes before, and I was like, hold on, don't say anything, because I want to hit record, because we want to, I want to get all the juice.
I have no idea what's coming.
Yeah. If you look under your seat, there's keys to a brand new car. So the question I have for you is, can you tell me about a time when you struggled with authenticity in entrepreneurship? And that will kind of segue, then we'll go into some tips for our listeners. So just think back and tell me, give me something about that.
I think it would have to go back to kind of when I started my business, because I knew my why, and I knew what it was I wanted to do and why I wanted to do it. But I think being a Brit and starting a business in America, and I was, surrounded by some amazing entrepreneurs, amazing military spouse entrepreneurs, but a lot of American entrepreneurs. So I'm thinking, okay, how do I come across and make people want to work with me in kind of an environment that is predominantly American at this point, because that's where I'd started. America. And so I felt like I was maybe talking to people in a way, or presenting myself in a way that lent itself more towards an American market, without, I guess, being proud of the fact that I was British. So I guess and I would start talking. They'd be like, oh, you're English, I didn't realize. And at first I was like, oh, that's social media, that's the way people are perceiving me. But then I was like, if that's the way people are perceiving me, I'm obviously not putting forward a certain part of myself, which is actually the biggest part of myself that I'm really proud of. So I don't know if it's inauthenticity, but I guess I wasn't fully embracing, I was holding back that part of me, because I thought that may have been a barrier to people wanting to work with me. Which is crazy, because at the end of the day, the people that want to work with you will want to work with you regardless of who you are, where you're from, what you do. It's because of how you can help them. So I think at first, I would say that I definitely held back from like the Brit in me really coming forwards, because I was working with an American market, and I was portraying a side of, or I was not portraying a side of myself that was really true. But doing that for so long doesn't last, because you eventually become uncomfortable doing it, and it's not the way that you can continuously be, if that makes sense. You can continue to put yourself forward in a way that isn't really you.
We PCS from market to market, and we dump ourselves into a new market, and we feel like an alien in a completely different environment. So that happens to many of our listeners. It happens to me, where we're trying to break into an area that may be already established, and they're like, who the heck are you? And
right.
What did it? And so you're trying to adapt to that. And that's incredibly difficult, especially when you're talking about growing your business, because you've got to get out there and meet people locally. You've got to get out there and, put your name out there. And I can just see how many of our listeners can absolutely relate to that, because we're constantly in environments where we are new.
Yes.
So listeners have about, I don't know, maybe 12 minutes with us today.
Okay.
After all that fun stuff. And I want to get into your work, and when you're talking to your clients about being authentic in entrepreneurship, what are some tips or hurdles or advice that you can walk us through as we start to approach this? Well, first of all, what does authenticity mean to you?
Authenticity to me is showing and being your true self without any concern or repercussion for what other people see that as. So it's being comfortable in knowing who you are and sharing that with people, regardless of how you think they may think about it.
You're not for everybody too,
yeah. And that's okay. That's absolutely okay.
All right. And tips to help people understand where that authenticity can lay.
So I think the biggest one for me is it's more about, you need to focus more on the message that you're giving people and how you want to help them, as opposed to how people are going to perceive you and your message. So if it comes from a place of genuine, like care and understanding and wanting to help people, and you take away how people are going to receive you, then the concern of not coming across as authentic goes away, because you're not worried about what people think of you, you're worried about how you're helping them. And so for me, that was a really big hurdle in just getting out there. As soon as I stopped worrying about what people would think and how they see me, it's how am I helping them? What is it that I can actually give to them? And when you take that layer away from it, information comes really quickly. You never run out of things to say to people, because you're focusing on how you can help them and how you can change their lives, not what are they going to think of me when I say this to them.
That's so scary to walk into a room and not know anybody. And now you're trying to adapt to the environment. You're trying to be yourself, but you don't want to, like, how much of myself can I be? Like, everybody who listens and follows me knows that I love and I'm very obsessed with the Wu-Tang Clan. And so I have that in like mugs and sayings all in my life. And it's a very, it's a 25-year-old hip hop group. And so when I'm out there, people are like, I can't believe that you like Wu-Tang. I'm like, I love Wu-Tang. And I'm very like, open with it. I'm also kind of saucy and spicy, in my life. So that kind of like portrays out into my messaging. But I've also come across like, well, maybe I need to like button that up a little bit for different environments, right? If I'm at a speaking event and, there's people that are 55 plus, maybe that's not the environment to talk about, my obsession with the Wu-Tang Clan, because it doesn't relate. So I struggle with that as well. And just trying to understand like, how much of me can really come through. And I guess that's the advantage of being your own business. Like, you're your own boss.
Right. But I also think there's a difference between being relatable and trying to change who you are for people. And I think, when you have a slightly different market that you're talking to, you want to be relatable to them. So you, like you say, you perhaps don't hone in so much on things that they're not going to connect with you on, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're not being your true self. It just means that you're identifying with them in a different way. So I think relatability and authenticity are two different things, and you can do one without losing the other.
Do you think that actually makes it a little bit easier for us to do business when we can accept like, this is who I am and this is who I'm going to come across as? And so, is it a little bit easier then as a result, because we've just gone, F everybody else? Not that way, but you know what I mean? Like, F the people that are going to be haters and just going to, constantly be negative and judge me. And I'm just going to embrace. And I think that this was another thing that you shared, is to find your tribe. We hear that all the time. What does that mean to you as far as, authenticity goes, finding your tribe?
I think the first thing is accepting that not everybody's going to be a member of your tribe and you're not going to be a member of everyone else's. And I think that, one thing that I say to people is, as soon as you get to a new duty station, it can be so tempting to just latch onto the first person that you meet. You're like, friend, and it's the first person that you see. And sometimes that's great, and sometimes you can have a natural bond with this person, but other times it can be more destructive and tiring to try to force a bond with somebody that isn't there. So I think take your time to find the people who really do get you and support you and want the same things for you, even if it's not the same things they want for themselves. It's, you have that mutual respect and support for one another, regardless of what those things look like. And I think sometimes, if it's so easy to just kind of like fall into the big groups of people, because you can kind of, hide away in the corner, but you're surrounded by people. But I think it's finding those people that really bring out the best in you and that you bring out the best in them as well. It's that mutual relationship. It's not just, oh, I'm latching onto this person because it's a friend and that's what I need. It's the true, genuine relationships. And sometimes they're harder to find, but it's worth it when you do.
I was going to say, I think I do that. So I think I'm very introverted when it comes to crowds, even though people think I'm extroverted, but it's only because like when I'm on, I'm on. But after I hit like end on this recording, I like shut down. I can't have any other meetings, And so, one of the things I do when I go to an event is I try to find my battle buddy and, like latch onto them. And I'll even warn them. I'm like, I'm so sorry, but, I'm going to have to sit next to you because like I am incredibly nervous. I have another guest that I'm going to be bringing on to talk about that concept, but I think it absolutely relates. And something I wrote down to when you were talking was, does your tribe change in entrepreneurship?
I believe so. I think there's your kind of your business tribe, and then there's your personal tribe, and sometimes they overlap. But I also think that as your company grows, as your mission will change throughout your business. I think that, the core values will stay the same, but sometimes who you help can change, or how you help them can change. And as you change and adapt with your business, I think so do your tribe of people. But at the same time, you're always going to have those people that are your core go-to, bring you up when you're down, or make you see sense when you're kind of going off the rails a little bit. So I think that there's both. There's the tribe of people that will adapt as your company adapts, but there's also going to be those key people that no matter what happens are always going to be your go-to, your sounding boards, or your the people that just bring you back to where you need to be. So I think it's a combination of the two. But also military spouse life, your tribe naturally changes just as you move to different places. And again, there's I've got friends from when I first moved over here, even though we're not in the same place anymore, and they're the consistent ones. And then you grow your friendship group when you get to a new place as well. So I think it's the same in business, and sometimes they're the same people, sometimes they're different people.
Yeah. And that can be hard if we're struggling with how to be authentic, because we're constantly changing and, meeting new people, and then they're feeding different things in our ears. Like, oh, you should try this, you should do this. And you're like, that's noise,
Yeah, exactly.
What other tips do you have or what else do you want to share about authenticity as it pertains to entrepreneurship?
I think, and this is a really hard one to do, but is learning how to cut out the noise. So when we live in such a digital, social media heavy world, it can be so easy to jump on to do your daily, your morning social engagements, interactions, and you get caught up in seeing what other people are doing or comparing yourself against other people. And it can be easy to say, oh, she's doing that, I really like that, I'm going to add that into what I do, but it doesn't sit well with who you are, or it doesn't fit in with your brand, or whatever it is. It's so easy to get caught up in what everybody else is doing that you end up diluting your own personal brands. And I think it's so important to find your own way of protecting who you are. So, it's a glass comfy bubble, so you can still see out of it, and you can still see what's going on, and you can still reach people, but you're not letting the influences of other people come into your own kind of like sacred area. And it is a really hard thing to do, and especially when you're starting out in business, because you're so malleable, you're so excited, you're so involved in everything, that it's easy to let things penetrate you. So it's just, it's creating that hard shell without kind of cornering yourself off from the world. So it's a really hard process, and it just develops over time. But it's something that I think is so key to remember from day one, is stay true to yourself by not letting other people influence who you are and how you do things and how you present yourself.
You got to cut out that noise.
Exactly.
Yeah, you got to do it. But there's also times where I need feedback. And so I'll ask someone, hey, what do you think about this? But that person that I'm asking, I trust to tell me difficult stuff, right? They're not it's not all roses. So sometimes they're like, that's an awful idea, but they're coming out of a place of truly wanting to help me. Some people, and I've come across this in 6 years of owning a business, there are people that are really out there and they're just so ugly inside, and they just want to demolish everything out there for everybody else. And so you can kind of trust your gut on that. I think we have a really good intuition when it comes to people, and you just being authentic also means like saying no to that, and saying no to that that toxicity, and because it will damage you to have all that negative space. You can't grow in negativity. So
exactly,
and you need to grow in business. So we started, like I said, 6 years ago, and what I started 6 years ago is different than what we've adapted, along the way. And I had somebody's told me like, that's a really stupid idea, you shouldn't do that. That would have really affected me, because you're very, like you said, malleable, you're vulnerable. And that's the other place where it's also very difficult to be authentic, because you're so vulnerable, right? Like, we're sensitive about our business. Don't tell me this is awful. Like, this is my baby, right? As listeners are, we're coming to a close, because Drop and Give Me 20 are supposed to be 20 minutes per episode, which is ridiculous. I don't know who came up with that idea.
Too much information. Yeah.
So much. I think the way I did it was, drive times and listening times. I mean, when I studied, I was like, well, 20 minutes. And I kind of like the military, Drop and Give Me 20. And everything was catchy. But I'm also like speed dating when I'm recording. I'm like, blah, blah, blah. So, as listeners are meeting you, Gems, is there anything that you want to close with today on this topic? How can we also, connect with you? What is it in your business that you might be able to help us with, and just kind of, put a nice bow on this really great topic?
So I think the key thing that I would want to leave people with is, or essentially what you started with, is finding your why. And this applies both in business and out of it. it's one, my very first client, we were working together because she wanted to start a business, but the biggest thing that she actually got out of it was so much personal growth, because she discovered the why behind everything that she was doing. And it not only helped her business fall into place, but she started creating routines and habits and a life in her personal world as well that was so much more fulfilling than anything she'd experienced previously. And it's because understanding your why gets you through the hard times. Like when you want to quit, if your why is strong enough, you're going to just keep pushing through. But it also provides you so much clarity and so much purpose, more than just you. And I think that everybody's here to do more than just be themselves. It's about helping others and sharing others and helping others grow. And your why is the thing that will help you figure out how you do all the things that you want to do, because it comes from that inner why. So that's one thing that I start every program with my clients. And it's one thing that I will sing from the rooftops until I'm blue in the face, because it's so important and it's so strong. And so if you want to find me, talk to me, connect with me, I'm on Instagram just under Gems Collins, Facebook Gems Collins, LinkedIn Gems Collins, and my website is Gems Collins. So it's very, very simple, very easy. And I'm open to just, if you guys have questions, if there's anything that I can help with, finding your tribe, any of the stuff that we've talked about today, then, I'm happy to. My goal is to reach and inspire and empower as many people as possible to find their why and find how it kind of filtrates their life to live a better, more purposeful, more impactful life.
Wonderful. And for those that are listening, it's Gems, like the stone, GEMS,
Yes.
Collins, COLLINS. So Gems Collins. You're lucky you don't have a complicated, mine's Germono. So I always have to spell it, and people are like, Geronimo? And I'm like,
yeah. Well, my maiden name was Leeming, and I got everything from Leeming, Lemming, learning, leaning. I mean, it was a nightmare. So as much as I miss my maiden name, Collins is a lot easier.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. Well, I appreciate you coming on for the Drop and Give Me 20 podcast. Again, our topic today was authenticity in entrepreneurship. And I know that we kicked around a lot of different facets of that. But I do really love that, finding your why and then the how will follow. I think that that's going to be like the tagline of this episode. It just was a perfect fit. And I think that also helps us stay authentic as we start making decisions in our business. For those that are listening, please connect with Gems. She's a really great supporter of our community. And I just absolutely love everything she's helping with and dedicated to. Gems, thank you so much for all the work that you do for us.
Well, and thank you very much for having me. I've loved it. It's been really great. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to Drop and Give Me 20, brought to you by Germono Advertising Company in Norfolk, Virginia. Please visit our podcast in iTunes, click on subscribe, and leave us a review. Your support goes a long way. When you subscribe and leave reviews, it helps the guests on our show as well. Jump in and let us know what you think. You can also follow all of our guests on the Drop and Give Me 20 Facebook page. We have Instagram and Twitter. Those handles are Give Me 20 Podcast. I'm your host, Lindsay Germono, and I appreciate you listening to the show.